Hello everyone and welcome back. Over the past 24 hours, Gaza City has once again been at the center of heavy bombardment, leaving behind destruction, fear, and yet another wave of civilian casualties. Reports from local health officials confirm that at least 53 people have lost their lives in the latest Israeli airstrikes, with around 35 of those deaths occurring in Gaza City alone. The attacks have not only reduced homes to rubble, but also claimed the lives of children, including 6-year-old twins whose family had been sheltering in what they thought was a safe area. Witnesses describe scenes of chaos and terror as families fled through smoke-filled streets, carrying whatever they could as explosions shook entire neighborhoods. Many residents are now heading south toward areas that the Israeli military has designated as humanitarian zones, but even there, conditions remain grim. Thousands of displaced families are living in makeshift shelters or out in the open without enough food, clean water, or medical care. Hospitals are overflowing, with doctors and nurses forced to treat the wounded on floors and in corridors as fuel and medicine run dangerously low. One of the most striking attacks in the last 24 hours brought down the Al-Qawthar Tower, a high-rise in Gaza City's Rimal neighborhood that once housed dozens of families. Residents say they were given a brief warning before the building was demolished, but the time was not enough for many to escape with all their belongings, or even ensure everyone inside made it out safely. The destruction of residential towers has become a pattern in recent strikes, with Israeli officials insisting these buildings were being used by Hamas for surveillance or military purposes. Local authorities, however, accuse Israel of targeting civilian infrastructure and carrying out what they describe as forced displacement. The humanitarian situation is deteriorating rapidly. In addition to the dozens killed in airstrikes, health officials report more deaths from hunger and disease as aid convoys struggle to reach those most in need. 2 people, including a child, reportedly died from severe malnutrition in the past day, underscoring the scale of the crisis. Electricity remains out in large parts of the city, clean water is scarce, and food supplies are dwindling. Entire families are surviving on minimal rations, often going for days without proper meals. International organizations are sounding the alarm. United Nations agencies say that nowhere in Gaza is truly safe anymore, with even schools, clinics, and shelters coming under attack. Aid groups are demanding the immediate opening of humanitarian corridors to allow food, fuel, and medical supplies to enter without restriction, warning that the situation is now on the brink of catastrophe. Diplomatic pressure is also building. Arab and Muslim world leaders are meeting in Doha to coordinate a response, while human rights organizations are calling for independent investigations into the strikes. Western governments face growing criticism from both activists and lawmakers over their handling of the crisis, with calls for an immediate ceasefire growing louder as the civilian death toll climbs by the day. Despite these appeals, there is no indication yet of a pause in hostilities. The Israeli military has stated that its operations in Gaza City will continue until what it calls security objectives are achieved. But for the people on the ground, those objectives have come at a devastating cost: destroyed homes, displaced families, and an uncertain future as the fighting shows no signs of slowing. In the past 24 hours alone, Gaza City has been transformed once again, its skyline shattered, its streets filled with rubble and grief. Families mourn their loved ones while trying to find safety where none seems to exist. Aid workers describe the situation as one of the worst humanitarian crises in recent memory, and the world watches as calls for action grow louder with each passing hour. Right now, the people of Gaza are living through one of the most difficult moments in their history. facing both the immediate threat of bombs and the slower, crushing weight of hunger, disease, and displacement. What happens next will depend on whether international leaders can push for a ceasefire, open humanitarian corridors, and prevent further loss of innocent lives. As we continue to follow developments, one thing is clear: the last 24 hours in Gaza City have brought more devastation, more heartbreak, and more urgency for the world to act before it is too late.